Hi guys, hope you're well. Welcome to DOdaily, Thursday Thoughts. Your questions answered. It's Des here. Cracking on for another week. It's getting towards the end of another chaotic and busy week and ever-changing. Of course, we've been talking about expecting the unexpected, and with everything that's going off out there right now, I think that's just epitomising everything. Lots to think about, lots to sort of plan, prepare for, and lots to deal with. And it's tough, but we've got to keep battling through, keep fighting it, keep doing the things we enjoy. Of course, through DOdaily, what I like to do is encourage activity, encourage people to support and get behind each other in using the things we can do to create a positive environment for both ourselves and when we work together as a team. And that's really important. So with the weekend approaching, I always find my mind starts wandering towards that, what I'm going to do. I love the weekend, so I'm always positive about those. And despite the fact that Nottingham's going into full lockdown as of midnight this evening, I'm still going to get out and do the things I do because fortunately I can. And that's important, getting out, doing the activity, doing some running, doing some walking, enjoying some of the things I'm going to talk about in today's questions. So just keep at it, guys. Keep expecting the unexpected, keep approaching things, wanting to enjoy them. And I can assure you that before you know it, we'll be through this next 28 days as we're facing locally. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be pushing on towards Christmas time and a lot better situation and a lot more to celebrate. But we'll have to wait and see on that one, of course. As ever, thank you for the input. Thank you for the questions. Really enjoy receiving those. I try not to put too much thought in them, but I do. When I don't know the answers, I do look into them slightly. Try not to be too technical in passing that across. Not just because I'm not that articulate, I'm not that eloquent, but I don't want to sort of pass it across in a way that's hard to understand. It's just about little bite-sized bits of information, things that we can use to sort of take forward, things that are easy to remember, and that's most of the information I'll relay today. It's things I've read this afternoon or picked up through other things, and it's just about passing on that message and just little things that might help people if they're in a difficult situation. There's a question today, for example, about injury, so if somebody's injured and they need picking up in that sense, they need bits of information of how they can recover, or things I'm doing, there's another question around that and how that can help them, and comparisons that we can make between each other to get ideas to get us through this situation, and to take on board long term, whilst we don't go too heavy on mental health through running and DOdaily. It is a massive part of what we do. I try not to sort of use too many of the not so nice words, but all the time it's in the back of our mind, and there's lots of reasons for that. But it's important to remember that all this physical activity, all this encouragement, all this togetherness, all this positivity is ultimately to get us through a situation in the best sort of mental health possible, with the best mental health possible, and get us through the other side and get us making positive changes to create a better environment post-COVID, long term, and be thinking for ourselves to make that difference. So, without any further ado, I'll get started with the questions. The first question was from Kay. Kay's been doing a lot of running recently. I've mentioned that a few times. Obviously, got an interest in that, and she's just started feeling a little bit of pain in the shins. She thinks it might be shin splints. So she's asking, do I have any advice for dealing with shin splints? Well, I always say when it comes to a sort of a question about injury or nutrition or diets or things like that. I'm no expert. I'm really not. As much as I love my running, as much as I love getting involved, it's not the main area I sort of focus on. But each time I love getting one of these questions because I can look into them myself, and obviously I'm going to sort of pick that up and take that on board if I have to deal with it. But in looking at it, I've read up that shin splints is one of the most common running injuries. It's a result of tired and inflexible calf muscles pulling together that put pressure and strain on other areas around the shin. Symptoms include aching, throbbing, and tenderness along the inside of the shin, about halfway up between the ankle and the knee. And another symptom is if you press in the area where it does hurt when you run, for example, and you press on it, you might feel a pain. It can be caused by many things, sort of worn out shoes, overpronating, running on hard surfaces. Beginners are susceptible to it, as are people who are returning to injury. So returning from injury, sometimes we might come back, we might try and run too much, to start with. So it's all about the strength around the shins, between the knee and the ankle, the muscles and the bones and things like that. So it's about building strength. So it's key to sort of work on building up slowly. For example, if you've not done much running and you are building up, I know, for example, Kay's done a lot of events recently with slightly longer distance, So it just might be a case that she's upped it a little bit too quickly. Sometimes we can do that for events, we can get into these training routines and start building, and before we know it, we've built very quickly. So that can be one of the reasons, like I say, and just knowing Kay personally, that could possibly be one. So what it's key to remember with these, it's key to just think about what activities you can do sometimes in terms of taking it easy. You can actually run with shin splints. You definitely can. One of the key signs to know it definitely is shin splints is if you can start running, the pain will generally go away. Not necessarily, but a key indicator, like I say, is that the pain will go away and you'll be able to finish your run, and then you might feel sort of injured after that, and you could do things like swimming, walking, just to sort of bring that down if you're in that much pain and you can't run from that, Make sure, of course, that you take good care. Like any injury, it's about resting. It's about thinking what you're able to do, whether it's going to cause ongoing pain. So it's important to take on these few bits of advice I've picked up. I'm going to read these off the paper because I've taken this straight from an article I'm going to publish in the comments after. So it basically says the best treatments are to ice an inflamed area for 15 minutes, 3 times a day. Take aspirin and ibuprofen to ease the pain. Make sure you ice the shin areas post-run immediately. That's really important. And for a quick recovery, rest completely, like I just said there. So typically recovery time for shin splints is 2 to 4 weeks. Lots of us are impatient and don't really want to sort of wait that long. And of course, stick to the 10% rule. So if you are building up the mileage, just try and do that by 10% per week, So if you do 10 miles this week, do no more than 11 next week, no more than 12.1 the week after that, whatever 10% is. It's really important, and it can just be a way of easing all the pain, If the problem persists, of course, like with any injury problem, it might be a case of speaking to a physio and a GP who might recommend custom-made soles, because potentially because of the overpronating. Sorry. Yeah, so custom-made soles, and they might do a scan, just to eliminate the fractures. And like I say, to maintain activity of some degree, you can look at those less impact activities like swimming, walking, and cycling in a low gear. I think there's a bit of advice there. Like I said, I'm no expert in this area, and I do try and get the information right when I speak about it. So it's important to remember just to take care of it, just to keep monitoring it. Of course, warm up, warm down with any injuries. There was another question I was given today, which I'm going to look into for next week about injury as well. So it's nice to sort of get those kind of questions, because it's a learning curve for me as well, and I'm really going to sort of look into this question I've got regarding back injury, and I'll answer that next week, because I really try and get that information right. It's so easy to pass across the wrong information, but it's like anything, take it easy, if you have to stop, as frustrating as that can be. If the pain's too much, if you can manage it a little bit. Been talking a lot about my groin and managing it. When the pain builds up, I really rein it back in. As frustrating as that can be, it really is. It's just about sort of running to the distance I can, at the pace I can sometimes. I'm keen to progress and keep pushing on. But you've got to do what you've got to do to get better in the long term. And believe me, it's better to sort of take that 2 to 4 weeks, like has been recommended there, to make a speedy recovery in the end. There's nothing worse than being injured as a runner, and we all know that. It's really, really frustrating. So thanks for that question. Hopefully that helps. The next question. I thought this was a great question. This is the kind of stuff I like answering, because I feel a lot more confident. It's more based on opinion. John says, are there any particular areas in which you recommend visiting to take part in activity? This is in light of, he extended on this question, which is not shown there, by saying, due to lockdown in the area we're in, and he asked about Nottingham in particular, because he lives locally. So, of course, all the way through, I've been talking about where we can do, what we can do. Check out the Friday morning videos. Always go to somewhere different. Got a cracking one lined up tomorrow. I'm going to be going there because this week, with the clocks going back, it's light again at the time I want to be out. But all these places are available at any time of the day. I've been to lots of country parks. The beauty of running is we can do it anywhere, or walking or cycling or whatever activity we choose. We can go and do it anywhere, jump in the car, travel to do it. Fortunately, unlike the first restrictions, we've still got that opportunity to travel, which was sort of wasn't available last time. So just get out there. I think one thing we're guilty of as runners in particular, myself, I can be the same, is running in the same areas and then complaining about it. It's great to mix it up. It's great to go and arrange to meet people, in different places. I kind of do that to get me away, to make sure I'm accountable. But everybody's got somewhere. So if everybody's got somewhere, we've all got different places to go, because there's lots of country parks in Nottingham, for example. There's 6 or 7 places that do park run, and generally they're in big country parks or areas of interest, so you can sort of revisit those at different times. Whilst I'm not encouraging anyone to sort of mass meet for a park run, you can always go and run those park run routes. You might think, I could do the 7 in Nottingham over the next 7 weeks. It might be a little target you build. So there's places like that. Of course, I live close to a river, so that offers sort of different places. In Nottingham, it's a hilly-ish city, so there's lots of places with views. And in the winter, I just like running around the streets a little bit more. I started my running journey in that. I didn't always live by the river. So running around sort of different areas and taking new turns. That was one thing I used to do. I used to take a turn I'd never took before, and just sort of see where it ended up. Sometimes I'd end up doing a couple of extra miles, which was always a bonus and always might have been tough doing it, and I might have got myself lost a few times, but I didn't panic. Just kept going and found my way out, or if I really had to, which I was reluctant to do, was turn back. But that's just a bit of stubbornness on my part. So there's lots and lots of places you can go and see. And I'm not too sure about the ruling in terms of lockdown, but of course, recently I've been to the coast a couple of times. Some of those places I've been to have been absolutely amazing, without being spectacular. Without nothing major going on there. Kind of use them as a busman's holiday. I've gone to do the video, I've gone to walk, I've gone to run, and then just sort of live how I would normally live. But it's just a change of scenery, isn't it? And we've said it a million times on DOdaily, we've said it a million times in life, a change is as good as a rest. So it's just important to realise that there's so much out there, just because you've never been before. I know John personally, and I know he's rubbish at getting himself lost, even in his, probably get lost in his own back garden. But like I say, if you don't panic, if you just keep on track, of course, be safe. If you are worried about getting lost, stick to the places. The important thing is about getting out for activity, isn't it? And we've got that opportunity. With all these open spaces, with all these country parks. I'm starting to think, with restrictions, what am I going to do at the weekend? Is the opportunity to go and visit certain places. Like I say, I will have to check that out because I'm not too sure myself. So I think there's a few things to go out there. Personally, I would recommend setting a little target for the next couple of months. Winter's tough. Lockdown's going to be tough. So if it's what I said there about getting around all the park ones within Nottingham, or going back to your first park run, or something like that, just something to sort of keep your brain ticking. Of course, there's not a park run to sort of log your results, and it could just be your fix for that week. But like I say, just find those real places of interest. Keep watching the Friday mornings. I've still got a few places lined up. Trying to sort of cling on to that daylight, but even when it gets dark, there'll be places and there'll be some focus on what we can do in those situations as well. So make sure you tune in for that. Thanks for the question. And the third question today comes from Simon. He says, what podcast do you listen to get your fix for your personal interest? He actually extended on that as well. He told me that he's been getting a bit of stick on the building site. He works as a painter, and he says that he's been listening to the Archers, and he's getting laughed at by his mates. But he's finding it really relaxing. He's getting his work done. He's just zoned out. And even when he's doing activity, he sticks it in, and before he knows it, he's flying and he's really into it. He also, I think I saw it somewhere else, he mentioned about listening to Gabby Roslin, Gabby Yoroff, not sure what her name is these days, but the BBC personality, of course. He mentioned listening to that. And said that's really good. So that's definitely something I'm going to check out. I've not heard of that before, but I listen to lots of things. I mention this sort of every day, and I saw a friend yesterday referring to the fact that somebody had advised her to listen to something, because she wasn't feeling fantastic. And then she felt fantastic. She went out and did some activity on the back of it. And that's what it does for me. It's a case of continually developing, getting ideas to do different things. We haven't got all the answers. I haven't got all the answers. None of us have. So touched on a few times, it's dangerous to think that we know it all, we know best. That's absolutely not the case. But personally, I listen to a guy called Rob Dial. He does something not too dissimilar to me, not as often, but it's an American thing. But he he's so much better than me for a start, because he's got millions of followers, and that's why I find him in the first place. But it's just about picking up those tips and advice of how to deal with everyday life. He doesn't talk about activity. He just talks about general life and what we can and can't do. I listen to a thing called Happy Place. It's Fern Cotton. Really enjoy that. She has some more familiar guests on. I mentioned this before, but there's an episode with Ricky Gervais. I find it absolutely fantastic, and one with Kelly Jones, my favourite singer. So all things like that. I look at a lot on YouTube now, all sorts of different things, watching what people are doing, watching how people are doing it, just to try and get ideas. And when it comes to activity, I'll look at all the usual things. I'll find old athletics off the television. Listen to people like Brendan Foster and Steve Cram, who are really sort of inspiring. All those things are really interesting. I was watching a video last week. I think Kay was wondering what was going on. I was watching a training video from Seb Coe in about 1979, but all stuff like that really sort of inspires me to get up and get going. I listen to a lot of inspirational stuff on YouTube. Again, whilst I don't try and force that on anybody, it just works for me. It gets my mind going. That's why I try and get up early and use it. And it's really important. And he also asked, following that question, is there anything a bit off the cuff I listen to, a bit like the Archers? And there is actually. I think it's great, but other people might think, oh God, what are you doing that for? I actually listen to Desert Island Disc, and I'm actually getting Kay into it as well, so that's great. We tend to listen to it in bed before we go to sleep, or on a Thursday. I've mentioned we've created this nice setup since we've moved. We've got a sort of dining room we can use and sit and listen to things and have a glass of wine. And we started sort of switching the television off, planning the weekend, looking forward to what we're doing. And then when we're really finished, because I've said this before, it's kind of the start of our weekend, although we still got Friday, still have to get up early, still have to attack it. The bulk of what we have to do is done. So we sit down with a glass of wine, listen to Desert Island Disc. Some of them are absolutely fantastic. We listened to one recently by Samantha Morton, who's local, and Ian White, the pro footballer, and absolutely fantastic and really inspiring as well at the same time. Really get you sort of into the mindset that you want to sort of talk, you want to listen, you want to sort of learn new things, and that's what's really good about these things. So keep listening, Simon. I'll post a couple of the links to those again in the comments. Check a few out if you can. Of course, comment, let me know what you think. Love to hear that, and just keep finding different things. That's what it's about, isn't it? It's about doing different things, learning all the time, and just deciding which way you can do it best for yourself. And that's what's really important to get us through. And that's what's really important in taking advice on board, just to sort of deal with things that a little bit easier. So thanks for those questions. I really appreciate that. I've got a couple already for next week, but keep posting. Love to get comments, whether it's good or bad. As you've seen, not always perfect at this. It doesn't always roll off the tongue, but I'm giving something a go. I'm doing what I want to do. I really, really enjoy it. I found something I can do every day, keep me focused. I'm determined to get it right. How long that takes, who knows? But that's not putting me off. I'm not fighting by a bit of hard work. I'm not fighting by what people think. It's just a case of keep going, keep pushing on. Of course, we always have a throwback question. Last week, it was a question by Davda who asked me personally about my experience of a time when I went along to something where I wasn't expecting much, but I come away sort of blown away, emotional, really felt it, really, really enjoyed it. Of course, that led on to the unexpected theme we've kind of worked with this week. And I mentioned going to Armed Forces Day in Nottingham, absolutely fantastic. Seeing the old planes, it was coincidental that she asked that question on the back of going to some kind of air show where they shown the timeline between the first flight and the moon landing and how quickly that was, and she said it made her feel really emotional. Do you know, Kay sort of come back to me and said some of these UK trips we've been on this year, she's really enjoyed them. Wasn't knowing what to expect, you know, perhaps in many ways got carried along by my idea of what they should be, but she's really enjoyed them. She's really enjoyed getting out for a run somewhere different, you know, and then come back and thought, I'm so glad I've done that. And that's what's really good. And Dawn says when she was young, a dad dragged her along to see the red arrows at Cromer. Do you know, they had to wait so long and she didn't know what to expect. But again, she come away absolutely blown away. And it's interesting you say that. I'm sure it's more than planes that can pleasantly surprise us. But I went to the Great North Run a couple of years ago, you know, and it was apart from just being an amazing experience, because it's one of the best races there possibly is, do you know, everything seemed to go right for me. I got a PB that day. The red arrows come across my head when I was on the Tyne Bridge. Do you know, it's kind of a symbolic part of that race. Do you know, and then I mentioned the PB, sorry, I'm not showing off. And then I got to the end. I felt really emotional because it was one of my first races. Do you know, one I'd really built myself up for. Do you know, it was the end of a big challenge. And then the red arrows was over the sea doing in display there, and I seen them as well. And I just stood there in awe of what was happening because it was just a spectacle, absolutely amazing. Really enjoyed that. And just one final one, the London Marathon as well. What an experience that was. There was lots of people at the end waiting for me, and rather embarrassingly, I was quite emotional at the end. Again, it felt like I'd come a long way from a certain point in my life, and this is what this is all about. It's just sort of realising how far we've come, what we've still got to do, and how we can go about doing it. So there's a couple of things there where people have really been pleasantly surprised by what they've done, and that's it's really important to just approach things willing to be surprised, wanting to be surprised, you know, and accepting that. If we go into something in a mood, we generally come out of it in a mood. If you go in wanting to enjoy it, it might be disappointing, but you've got no chance if you're not wanting to in the first place. So look forward to the things you do, guys. You know, keep planning, keep putting them in. Of course, this week's throwback question, it's actually, as you'll probably all be aware, it's actually Halloween this weekend. So I was thinking, what could we do? Do you know, and whilst I like to keep it positive, whilst I like to keep it sort of fun and quirky and whatever, I'm going to ask you, what was your horror moment in a race or an activity or a run? Do you know, anything you want? What was your sort of worst moment? I'll give you mine. I've got one in mind, but I just going to use Halloween as a bit of a theme over the next couple of days. So I thought, rather than make it a negative, what was your worst moment? But let's make it fun, you know. Did you trip over something? Did you run into something? You know, you tell me. You come back with the throwback question. I'd love to hear those. I'd love to get lots of comments. I mentioned yesterday, a little bit quiet on the comments this week, a little bit sort of, people are feeling the situation, and that's totally understandable. It's really tough out there. But what we can do, you know, as a community, what I can try and do through this is encourage people to stay involved, stay positive, you know, stay active. They're the things. Of course, I work with the guys at Get Active Nottingham, and whilst we're trying to encourage all that activity, what we also want to be as well is inclusive to everybody who's looking in. You know, you might take nothing from it, you might take lots, you might take just a bit, and that's what's really important. So keep at it, guys. You know, if you can answer those questions, if you can send me some questions, you know, to work at, I'll get working on them in the week. You know, and until tomorrow, where I'll be at that new location, perhaps somewhere for John to check out over the weekend if he's not been before. You know, look out for that. I'm going now to have a glass of wine and listen to some more Desert Island Disc. So until tomorrow, until the morning, bright and early, wake up and walk. If you can't do that, wake up and watch DOdaily, over your breakfast with a cup of coffee whilst I'm out in the cold. So till then, guys, just doing it.